Hey guys, really quick video that I wanted to do here, very lighthearted. I just wanted to recommend this game here. It's called Epic Mickey Rebrushed, and don't be fooled by the name. I think the name is a little bit stupid. Epic Mickey. I wish they almost called it just Mickey instead, just period. But this remake is really good. I never played the original Wii game, Epic Mickey on the Wii. Never played it. But I really like this game, and I want to tell you guys why. So, I went down a journey with this game. What got me wanting to play it, or what got me interested in it, was I was actually watching a YouTuber play Astrobot, and I saw Astrobot won Game of the Year, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Not too much came out this year. You know, there was like Black Myth Wukong, and there was some other stuff, but like, you know, Astrobot won. That's cool. Good for Astrobot. It's good to see a platformer win. But it got me thinking about platformers, and I kind of got in the mood to play one, so I saw this on Steam for $30. I was like, hey, why not? I'll give it a shot. You know, I always thought it would be a good idea to do a Disney-style game in the 3D platformer space, because that's just been missing for a long time, you know? Or, I mean, it's been missing forever. Like, there's never really been a great Disney platformer, except, like, DuckTales, right? Like, the original DuckTales on the NES, which I did actually play, DuckTales 1 and 2. I played them a long time ago. I went on a kick where I was playing old NES games for a while, because that was kind of before my time, but I did go back and play, like, Castlevania and a little bit of Mega Man and stuff like that, and I did play DuckTales. But in the 3D platformer space, you know, Disney, they have this great art style, and it's like, it's a lot of missed opportunity, right? Like, with Mario and with, you know, Sonic and Ratchet and Clank and Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter, these games, you know, they all have, you know, they're all doing the Disney thing, kind of. You know, we're all doing, like, little animal creatures that are, like, cartoon animals that are, you know, funny or whatever. They're serious, maybe. They're edgy, or they're funny. Like, you know, the art style, it's always, like, kind of trying to do the Disney thing, but I feel like a true Disney, like, fairy tale fantasy style art would really work in a 3D platformer very well. And I was thinking about that, where it's like, you know, why isn't there a good Disney 3D platformer with Mickey instead of Mario, Mickey instead of Sonic, whatever? It's like, I think that would be interesting. And, you know, the old-timey art style, you know, the closest that we got to that was, like, you know, Cuphead, which I got to go back and try Cuphead again, but I will admit Cuphead was a little bit too hard for me, just because it was like a boss rush type game. And being a boss rush type game, like, I was a little bit disappointed in that, because I was hoping for something that would be a little bit more difficult in its stage-based gameplay, like something closer to Castlevania or Ninja Gaiden. I was kind of wanting something more like that, and it ends up being kind of like a boss rush type game based on what I played of it. It was just a little bit too much. It's like, it really just, it doesn't ease its way into difficulty. It just throws it all at you like you just jumped halfway through the game, or like you're at the very end of the game. So Cuphead was a bit much for me. But I saw this game, saw it was on sale, and I was like, you know, I could see this game being, before I even played it, I was like, I could see this being a favorite 3D platformer for me, just because its art style is so on point. And I was just kind of looking at it and was like, I know I'm going to like this. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to like this. And, of course I did. I wasn't disappointed. And for me, it's like, when it comes to 3D platformers and judging them, I feel like Mario really is like a cut above everything else. And then everything else is just kind of like good, but, you know, it's whatever. It's like, people have their favorite platformer character franchise, you know? Like, maybe it's Banjo-Kazooie for someone. Maybe it's Ratchet or Jak or whatever. But Mario is always at the top, because Mario is always the best designed, and you just can't refuse that. Like, you can't deny how good Mario is. Like, Mario Galaxy is like top tier. Mario 64 is like top tier. Sunshine as well, though Sunshine has some problems, but I like Sunshine a lot. Sunshine is like maybe my favorite, but I like 64 a little better. I like Sunshine more than Galaxy, actually, even though Galaxy is kind of better designed, but Sunshine just has a charm to it. So, yeah, and then, Astrobot is another one where Astrobot is in that conversation now. People are saying Astrobot is like Mario Galaxy 3. It's like that good. And I don't know, I haven't played it yet, but I feel like the other mascot franchises are a little bit more of like a tier below. Everyone has their favorite. Like, if your favorite is Sonic, then, you like Sonic Generations, or you like Sonic, the new Sonic ones that are good, because there's been a lot of bad Sonic games, I know. Sonic 06 is a legend in the archives of terrible games. Put it in a museum, basically. It's that bad. Some people are huge fans of Ratchet. Ratchet is still going. Sly Cooper died, unfortunately, so, that franchise is kind of buried, but some people really liked those games. I liked those games as well. My only problem with Sly Cooper was the voice acting was really grating, and I got really sick of it. The voice acting, you got to be careful with voice acting in kids' games, I think. Like, if you want your kids' game to appeal to adults at all, be careful about voice acting. Don't be too annoying. It's a good way to get under an adult's skin. You have Jar Jar Binks characters or whatever, sorry for Borderlands fans, but characters like Claptrap or whatever, like it's not gonna fly with a lot of adults, and I'm one of them. It's not gonna really fit for me. It's one reason why I think Crash Bandicoot also holds up. Crash Bandicoot is like pure gameplay. I haven't played much of Spyro. Spyro seemed a little bit more kiddie, but I don't know. I'll have to give Spyro another try maybe if I want to give that a shot there, but. Everyone has their favorite mascot franchise. Mario is always like A+, S tier. And then there's all these like sort of B tier guys. And, what's your favorite out of that? And, it's going to depend on the person. Epic Mickey, going into it, I kind of knew it was going to be a good game. I looked at the controls, like I saw like gameplay of it, and it's like there's a triple jump that is kind of like Mario Galaxy. Or different. Mario Galaxy doesn't have a double jump, so in Mario Galaxy you have like a spin attack, and you have a spin attack in this that's very similar to that, but you can use it as effectively a triple jump, which is pretty neat. The game has this brush that Mickey uses to paint the environment, and he also has thinner to get rid of things in the environment, so it has a little bit of that Mario Galaxy to it as well, which I was seeing Astrobot has that a little bit too with the jump jet, where you can kind of do like the Mario Sunshine like jetpack, water jetpack, which is really cool. But this had like a little bit of that Mario Sunshine thing going on, and it's like this looks like it's got some Mario Galaxy, it's got some Mario Sunshine. It definitely has some Sly Cooper in there as well, in the environments and the design of the environments and the size of the environments. They're all kind of like open world but small scale, like fairly open maps that are kind of a little bit more like, I don't know, tight, and content is kind of compact in it. And so when I played it, like that's what I got, and that's what it is, and it's really good. So I do highly recommend this game if you're interested in this type of thing. But one thing that I wanted to let you guys in on with this game is one reason that I would end up loving this game that I didn't expect going in. Because, I expected to like the art style, expected the art style to be top-notch and all that. I expected all that for this game to be, kind of cute and aesthetically pleasing. What I didn't expect was this game would be such a history lesson for Walt Disney. And I learned a lot of things while playing this. I didn't know a lot of the history of Walt Disney. So while playing this, I ended up watching a lot of Disney content, like specifically documentary that I saw on Walt Disney. I watched a lot of the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s cartoons of Disney, of Mickey and this stuff, Donald as well. Those were the two very popular ones at the time. I don't think Goofy had his own designated cartoon at the time, but Mickey and Donald did. And what was my guide in watching those cartoons is in the game, you get to jump into these projectors. There's like a projector running like an old Mickey cartoon, and you jump into it, kind of like Mario 64 style. Like Mickey jumps into it, and then he enters like a 2D space where it's like a 2D world, kind of like how Sonic Generations had like the 3D environments, and then there were the 2D environments that are more like classic Sonic. It's kind of like that. So like you jump into these 2D environments to go through this history lesson of Disney, and it goes through all these different Disney cartoons, all specifically Mickey, not anything else. And it goes through, Fantasia. It goes through, of course, Steamboat Willie. It goes through like a Jack and the Beanstalk one. It goes through a clock tower one where like Mickey, Donald, and Goofy are like cleaning a clock tower. And I went through the history here and I watched a lot of these, and they're interesting. They don't all hold up. Some of them are funny, but some of them aren't. Some of it's a little bit uncomfortable to watch. Like, one that I found very uncomfortable to watch was Plutopia. Very, very weird. Mickey sticks like a muzzle on Pluto, and like some of this stuff is on the YouTube Kids. It says like a YouTube Kids app. Like I'll click on the video and then it says this is YouTube Kids, and it's like, oh man, I don't know, guys. Like some of these are like really racist and not cool, and like really old, and like a lot of animal abuse and stuff like that. That seems to be a common theme in Disney, which I'll come back to, by the way, because I learned a thing about that. So, I go through this history, and it's fascinating, and it's interesting how Mickey as a character became so childish, I guess, as a character, because I don't think it definitely wasn't like that in the beginning. Like what I was saying about cartoon characters in games that are like, like I was saying, like, don't overly voice act, guys, because you might alienate some of the adults that don't want claptrap type characters from, or whatever. You don't want to like annoy people too much. Well, Walt Disney himself said it in an interview that I saw where he said, well, our goal is to appeal to children, but the adults have the money. So, we have to, of course, appeal to adults too. Of course, because they're the ones with the money. And so with the old Disney stuff, it's interesting because Mickey as a character, if you look at the old Mickey shorts, the old Mickey short videos, they, going back to like 1927 all the way to 1953, that's the last Walt Disney production of Mickey Mouse. It was 1953. And after that point, from what I understand, Mickey then becomes very, very much a character that is aimed at not just children, but small children, like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, like kind of like Dora. Like you're teaching your children, he's teaching children, how to spell, basically, or like ABCs type stuff. Like that's the level of like child's character this is at that point. And so the classic rival of Mickey Mouse and of Disney would be the Looney Tunes, because the Looney Tunes were actually a lot more funny, and especially later on. Like when I talk to my parents who are like, baby boomers, and my aunts and uncles, especially like my uncles, that grew up watching cartoons in the 60s and whatnot, no talk of Disney. Disney is like not funny. Disney's whatever. Disney's like babies. What was funny was Looney Tunes. We like the Looney Tunes, right? And what's funny is that Looney Tunes is very old. Looney Tunes goes back to the 30s. But Mickey and Donald and Goofy, that stuff back in the 30s and in the 40s and the 50s, it was basically Looney Tunes. Or early 50s, I should say. It was Looney Tunes. It was in that spirit, I guess. It was a lot more over the top, kind of violent, almost like, like how in Tom and Jerry, like Jerry just abuses Tom and like, puts him through all kinds of torture. Basically that. Like, it was a lot more slapstick, a lot more kind of like Looney Tunes in its spirit. And it's interesting when I was watching those old cartoons because um they're so edgy, they're so different, you know? It's such a different type of person watching this back in those days. Like, the children were built differently back then watching this stuff. There was actually one cartoon I saw when I was browsing through Wikipedia about some of this Mickey and Disney stuff. There was a Donald Duck cartoon that won an Academy Award, and it was a World War II propaganda video of Donald basically doing like Roman salutes and was saying Sieg Heil and stuff like that. And Donald in the video, like the whole point of it, or the whole like, you know, message of it is that like Donald keeps doing the Sieg Heil, he keeps, you know, and like a copy of Mein Kampf is like shoved in his face, and he's on the assembly line of like making like artillery shells for the Nazis, and he's building them, and like you see as Donald like keeps getting degraded, and like more and more like, you know, guns are stuck in his face, like Kar 98 German rifles are stuck in his face, and he keeps having to make these, and he keeps having to throw up Romans, and he just keeps having to like eat it basically here, and then he wakes up and it's a dream, and he's like, oh, I'm actually American, thank God, and then he like hugs like a doll of Uncle Sam, and it's just like, it's a different spirit, and it was just a really interesting historical rabbit hole to go down. And speaking of rabbits, there's a character on the right there named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Now, Oswald, I'll give you a little more history that I learned here. Oswald was the first character that Walt Disney made, and so Walt Disney, before he made Mickey, Mickey was like an answer to Oswald, because Oswald was a character that he did a deal with Universal, and Universal essentially like stole the character because Disney didn't really read the contract right, or they were a little bit naive to the contract and the specifications of it. So Walt ended up losing his character. And if you look behind Mickey and Oswald here, at the statue, you can see Walt holding the hand of Oswald as he would hold the hand of Mickey in the Walt Disneyland statue. This game brings back Oswald the Lucky Rabbit through a rights deal actually with Disney, where Disney traded, I think, a sports broadcaster from ESPN to whatever company, NBC or whatever. So NBC football could have their guy that was the ESPN guy, or the ABC guy that Disney had owned. So Disney essentially traded a person for Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And then this character, his debut appearance is in this video game, which is really interesting because this game is more than just an homage to Disney, Disney as a brand, I should say, and Mickey as a character. This game is, in so many ways, an homage to Walt as a person. And that's what's fascinating to me, and that's what got me down the rabbit hole of looking at all this stuff and looking at a documentary of, or watching a documentary of Walt Disney. And I saw one thing that I did not know about, and, you know, if anyone has any proof that I'm wrong about this, or if I'm wrong about this, then let me know. But I Googled this, and I think this is true, based on like family history of people in the Disney family. Walt Disney, when he was a child, found an unconscious owl. There was like an owl that was unconscious, and or asleep or whatever, it was unconscious, and I guess maybe the owl like hit its head on a branch or something, I don't know. And Walt picked up the owl and took it to his home and nursed it, and was like, look at this, I have a pet owl now. And the owl woke up, and the owl attacked a young Walt Disney, like 10 years old, 12 years old. It attacked him, and Walt was forced to kill the owl. He was forced to stomp on the owl to death. This is a story that I had heard. If this is wrong, then I'm sorry, but I was reading this online after seeing it in the documentary, or I was looking at the articles of it, just to double check and make sure it's true. If that's true, that's well, the implication is that that's why animals always that's why Bambi is a movie. That's why that exists. That's part of the spirit of Walt Disney. And so the character, yeah, the person of Walt Disney is a very interesting person. And the fact that Warren Spector was involved in the creation of this game, was the director, is really fascinating as well. Warren Spector, for those who don't know, he created, or he produced Ultima, a lot of the Ultima games. He wrote Ultima 6, which is like kind of a really an inspirational role-playing game, like really old role-playing game. It's not Gold Box, I don't think. It's not quite from that era. It's a little later. But it's a really, really important role-playing game that Todd Howard actually cited as like a huge inspiration for him, as well as Ultima Underworld, which is what would be like the first-person 3D Ultimas, like dungeon crawly ones that would inspire Daggerfall and all that, and Arena. But Warren Spector worked on Deus Ex. He worked on Wing Commander, System Shock, Thief. He made a lot of these games, produced them, and directed some of them. And he left Looking Glass and all this stuff behind and took some of the people with him to make Disney stuff because he wanted to be at Disney. It was like his lifelong dream. He said he called his mother to tell him he's working at Disney, finally. And his mother's response was, "It's about time." So it's been a lifelong thing for him. He'd said that ever since he'd seen Sleeping Beauty as a child, it's always been what he wanted to do. And it's really fascinating for a man to have such a gaming track record, such an important, to be such an important piece of gaming history, to then turn around and do this. It's fascinating, for sure. And for a lot of people, it's disappointing. But for me, I'm glad he did it in retrospect, because I think that this game did turn out pretty good, especially in the remake. The Wii version, I guess, is very controversial because of the horrible camera and all that. But this version of the game is very, very good. And like I said about this game being an homage to Walt Disney as a man, a lot of that would tie into the location as well of the game, because the location is sort of like a twisted version of Disneyland, the park. So you go to like a Space Mountain, you go to like a Pirates of the Caribbean location, you go to these different locations, you go to Main Street, which is called Mean Street. And in this game, it's basically, to give the premise here, Mickey is in his bed, he's sleeping when the game wakes up, or when he wakes up, or when the game starts, he wakes up from a dream, he's sleeping, and he goes into this mirror, and he is in Fantasia, he's in, Yen Sid's mage tower, like his wizard tower, and he finds like a magic brush at Yen Sid's workstation, or whatever, his wizard station. He's doing spells, and Mickey starts screwing around with the paint, and he starts drawing things, and then he creates a world and he gets sucked into it. And where he ends up is in this place of rejected characters in a way, this sort of island of misfit toys for Disney characters, and Oswald is there, and Disney has to, or Mickey has to, like, kind of repaint and repair this place that he entered into, this realm. And I think it's a really cute idea and really cool, and such a great homage to, like I said, the man. Like, I've never played a game that's an homage to a person like this, to a person's life and legacy like this. Every Disney cartoon that is adapted in the different sections that you go through, are all created by Walt Disney. None of this is like, just has the Walt Disney name on it and that's it. Like, these are all like Walt Disney productions. These are all things that he did within his run from 1927 to 1953. So, and Disneyland was such a labor of love for Disney. Walt Disney lived in different locations. He had different houses, of course, but he had an apartment in Disneyland, and that that apartment, you can't actually go there when you go to Disneyland. You need some kind of like VIP pass or something to get there. But that room, it's in the firehouse apparently. It's one of the rooms up there, and they keep the light on for him, at night, just to have the light basically in memory of him at Disneyland. And that room is in the game. And so I saw an interview with Warren Spectre where he was talking about how he got to go into that room, and he said that the motion for him was overwhelming. And it's kind of this Disney adult thing, which I'm not really a Disney guy. Like, I'm not a Disney adult. Like, I really haven't seen much Disney stuff, to be honest with you. Like, I haven't seen any of the Disney princess stuff. I haven't really seen any of that. Like, I haven't even seen like any of the '90s stuff, like Beauty and the Beast and stuff like I haven't seen any of that. Like, I think the only Disney movie I saw was like, I've seen like Tarzan, and I've seen, of course, like the Pixar stuff. But Warren Spector, like, he's really into Disney, so he goes into this room, and he said he's like overwhelmed with emotion being in here, and he said, I swear, you can feel the presence of that man in that room. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting and powerful that he said that. And so the room is in the game, in Epic Mickey. You go into the room, you can find it, it's an Easter egg. And you go into the room, and Mickey says in it, like, it's like a thought bubble. He says, like, I'm feeling oddly emotional being in here, or something like that. Or I'm feeling, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm overcome with emotions. Yeah, and it's like, that's the spirit of this game. It's like, this game is a true love letter to a person that died, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, whatever. Yeah, so that's one thing that makes this game truly unique, as well as a few other things that make this game unique. Like the moral decisions. You can actually make moral decisions in this game. This is the only 3D platformer that I'm aware of where you can be evil, or you can make like bad decisions as Mickey, or good decisions. You can kill bosses or save them. It's like you can play this like Metal Gear Solid into like a pacifist run, which is really interesting. Never seen anything like that in a 3D platformer of all things. And there's like side quests and side quests that you can miss as well. Like if you miss it, you can fail the quest. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like I said, I've never seen a game like this before. And it got me learning about this man, this American, this famous American entrepreneur, basically, or this artist, this cartoonist that made the biggest corporation in the world, what would become the biggest corporation in the world. And what a fascinating story for that man to go from where he was to where he ended up. He had a plan to make a city. This is where things get weird a little bit with the System Shock connection here with Warren Spector, because, System Shock would go on to become Bioshock through Ken Levine. But the whole, Mr. House thing from Fallout, or Andrew Ryan thing from Bioshock. Classically, there's the myth of Walt Disney's head being stored in a freezer or something, like his frozen head. Mr. House, of course, was in that tube in Fallout New Vegas, frozen, cryostasis, basically. Andrew Ryan built a city to escape, America or whatever, because he had all these, ideological qualms with the United States and with the federal government. So he went and made his underwater city, made Rapture. Well, Walt Disney had this plan to make a city, and it was never made. It never happened, but he had this dream of making a city. So Disneyland was the first prototype, or the first sort of blueprint, I should say, not prototype, just like a blueprint, I guess, of like his conceptual stage of this, because this was, I guess, a dream of his or something he wanted. It was a goal. And then Disney World was the next step in Florida. Disney World was much, much bigger. Obviously, if you go to Disney World, like, you have to, like, take a car around. You got to get it. You got to get around that place. It's huge. Disneyland is much more small. Disney World is huge, living up to the name. And Walt Disney wanted to make a city in Florida. He had planned to make, like, that was like a goal of his, like, almost like make, I don't know if it would be Disney City, like if there would be Disney stuff all over the place, but he had an idea of making like a city. Almost like a childlike, kind of like, this is what I want to do this, like, this is like a goal of mine. And like, yeah, like, I saw the video of, like, there was a tram, there was like a train, kind of like Disneyland or like an amusement park, like a tram on like a bridge and everything, and the bridge would extend through the city and that sort of thing. Like, he had a plan of like making, like, he wanted to make like a community, like a small city, like in remote Florida. It's wild, it's crazy. And it's just interesting that Warren Spector was the one that ended up making this, and then there's a little bit of that Disney connection. I know it's like a stretch, but it's just an interesting observation that I found interesting. The connection there, the slight, similarities there with Disney being the entrepreneur he is. And, yeah, and that's the game, and I found the ending to be really, emotional as well, like, the ending with Mickey and Oswald, I just felt like it was really nice. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on this game. I think this is maybe my third favorite 3D platformer now, because it may not be as good as some other 3D platformers. It may not be as, like, tightly designed, not as well designed. But there's some bad aspects to some other 3D platformers that are loved out there. Like Banjo-Kazooie, like, it's a good game, but the last boss with the witch at the end is horrible, with the game show and all that. Like, there's some bad stuff in some other platformers out there. I think this platformer is pretty solid overall. And I think it's got, it's not as good as Mario 64. It's not as good as Mario Sunshine even, maybe. And it's not as, like, perfectly designed as Galaxy or whatever. Or, like, it's not as, like, refined as, like, Galaxy 1 or probably even 2. But I think this game has a lot more of a heart. And it has more meaning. That's the word I was looking for, meaning. It's got meaning behind it. You know what I mean? Mario doesn't really have much meaning. And a lot of these things, they don't have meaning. This has some meaning in it. And I think that's cool. I think that's really nice and unique to a 3D platformer. This is a very different kind of 3D platformer. And I recommend it if you see it on sale or something. Or there might be a demo. You might be able to download a demo or something. If you're interested in this kind of thing, I think it would be harmless to try out. It's what's the worst that can happen? It's these kinds of games, they're not too hard to screw up at the end of the day, I think. Most 3D platformers are pretty straightforward. And I think this is a very competent and well-made 3D platformer, and now it's maybe my third favorite 3D platformer of all time. Just below maybe Mario Galaxy. Mario Galaxy is, or maybe above Mario Galaxy, actually, because I would rank them, 64 is the best, then Sunshine, then Epic Mickey, then Galaxy, I would put. Because Galaxy is great, it's really well designed, but the gimmick of Galaxy, or a lot of the gimmicks of Galaxy, aren't really my thing. Like the zero gravity stuff. Like, I don't know why. Just wasn't really feeling it. I mean, it was cool physics, and it was pushing the Wii at the time. It was definitely a big deal, but it's a beautiful game, but I think Epic Mickey kind of works for me. So, worth a try. hey, a little bit of a curveball for you guys. Sure, no one expected this, but just wanted to throw the recommendation out there and a little analysis on this character and this Walt Disney stuff based on just what's been spinning around in my mind as I played this game and watched a bunch of old Disney cartoons that were sometimes offensive and watched a documentary on Walt Disney. So with that, I hope you guys maybe learned something or had fun watching this. So take care and have a good day wherever you guys are at right now, and recommend the game. See you guys on the next one.